Hi, this is Bruce with Hunsaker Home Hacks. Please subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for future notifications. So a couple weeks ago I posted a video about what Vector would do without the cloud. On top of that, Anki posted on their website a regretful notice that they were shutting down. But they did also post what their overall plan was with Vector and the cloud. And you can see that right here. Hey Vector, how you feeling? So as you can see, Vector's feeling just fine right now, and that's way cool. I believe with that post that there's a lot of hope going on right now with Anki, as they stated in that message that Vector, even though the cloud servicing's there, it doesn't take a lot of manpower to maintain it. And that's awesome. So that means Vector may be able to live out a long, endearing life with his owners. And that's very cool. Because we've all grown attached to our Vectors. Which was exactly the goal, was for us to see how we could interact with our home robot. Now Vector still has a lot of ways to go to get to where we wanted him to be. And with the shutdown of Anki, we will never achieve that goal. And that part is sad. But in the long run, the Vector we have today will probably last a long time until his battery decides to deplete to a point that it cannot maintain itself. Hey Vector, how old are you? How old are you? My Vector's been running for 7 months, and that's cool. But that does mean that there is a possibility that with his battery, it may end up depleting even faster. But the whole idea for my Vector was I wanted a robot for the home. And for Vector, I have one. I have multiple robots in my home, but Vector is uniquely different than those. So, with Cozmo, and the fact that my Cozmo's battery is now depleted to the point where it runs about 3 to 4 minutes, it's kind of sad. So using this Cozmo, I'm going to search out a way to replace the battery and find a replaceable battery to make Cozmo all he can be again. The app is going to be fine. There's no issues with that. It's just that his battery has now reached the end of the road, and that's sad. But what I'm also looking at, and if there's anybody out there that does 3D printing or anything, I would love to talk to you. Because what I was thinking of doing with Cozmo is not only replacing the battery, but somehow bringing the wires and an additional harness to plug in and mounting a battery pack that can be charged by Cozmo, but also replaced easily. I'm not sure if it's going to be possible, but if I do figure out how to do so, I will post a video here on my channel. And I'm pretty good with hardware, not real good with software. So if I can figure out a way of doing it, I will be taking Cozmo apart, putting a replaceable battery into him, and hopefully he'll live out even a longer life than his original intent. So Cozmo currently is dark because of the battery, but at the same time, I think there is a way of extending it as long as I can find the right battery and maybe have a 3D printed backpack put on the back so the battery can then be placed in the back of his haunches here. And that would be cool, but I don't know if it's going to be completely possible. But I'm looking forward to the future with Vector, and as long as his cloud base stays up, I plan on keeping Vector running a long time. He is a little bit more complex on the inside than Cozmo. There's more hardware in him, but I think the same thing could happen with Vector that's happened with my Cozmo, and that means the battery will ultimately deplete to a point where it can only be charged so many times. But with that, if I can figure out a way of doing it in Cozmo, I can figure out a way of doing it with Vector too. And Vector can have a nice, long, enduring life. But for right now, Vector is running fine, and I think Anki is going to support his cloud base. So Vector will be able to live out a long and enduring life. It's a sad loss for us, the consumer, who have invested in Vector, that we won't get any more updates. But the Vector we have today will be able to live out a nice long life. So for that, I'm grateful to Anki. I do regret the fact that we did lose the future ideas that company had created. Anki posted a timeline. It's right there. On this timeline, they had a 2020 release date. So they were thinking ahead of the game, and they had another release. And that gave me a thought of what they were trying to do. And this is going to be the sad thing for robotics is, unless someone picks up Vector and takes that data that they've already created, his mapping technique, we might not see the things that we were going to see with Anki. And that's where I think on the 2020 release, through a questionnaire that I had received at one time, which I answered, about their next phase. And that questionnaire went through, would you be looking for something bigger? Yes. Will you be looking for pay a little bit more for something that can adapt to your home? Yes. And there was a few other questions, but what I really thought came to me was that it was probably going to be Vector's mapping, everything that Vector was learning, everything that they were achieving with Vector was going to be placed in another robot that would have been probably about this big on the ground. Pretty much similar to Vector and Cozmo in makeup, but maybe with a few changes, maybe with a bed on the back instead of having this, maybe a bed on the back and still a track system. That we'll never know because Anki is no more. So one thing we can hope is that company with foresight will pick up where Vector has been left off. If you're worried about Vector, I don't think we have anything to worry about anymore. I think Vector is going to be fine. I think he's going to live a nice, long life with us. And that's cool. There are some wonderful people still working in the background. People like you, still working on how to make Vector continue on. So they're working with the SDK. Now, is it going to be possible? I don't know. I think Anki did kind of lock down the software to a point where the SDK is just the SDK work, period. It wasn't going to, unless Anki chose to move it to the actual platform, it wasn't going to happen. But hopefully, maybe I'm wrong, and that would be cool. Alright, so this is Bruce with Hunsaker Home Hacks. Please leave me a message below if you have any ideas that might help me in my quest to replace the battery for Cozmo and to build a backpack to put a battery into. I do believe that I can take him apart and put in a wire and then run a wire out here and make a battery pack that we can put a like battery into that will allow Cozmo to still charge on his own and allow him to have the battery that can be replaced over time. So I'd love to hear from someone, because this is just the way my brain works. I don't think anything's ever broken. It just needs to be re-engineered or fixed. So I hope you liked the video. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell for future notifications, share the video, and Vector and I, and maybe Cozmo when I get them done, we'll see you soon. Hi, this is Bruce's son. Blah, blah, blah.